Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
It feels like a piece of my soul is missing right now. Very much, I feel, even though I feel connected to him, it's not the connection that I'm accustomed to.
We'll speak with two of the mothers of the American hikers held in Iran for over 6 months. They've sent a letter to President Ahmadinejad pleading to see their children. Then the medical coordinator in a hospital near Marja, where U.S. and NATO forces are carrying out a major offensive in Afghanistan, say injured civilians are being prevented access to medical treatment.
War is not a solution, it is just a tragedy, And this, we can feel this tragedy every day, 24 hours per day, in our emergency room, in our hospital.
Then in Britain, a major public inquiry continues into the government's role in the Iraq War. We'll speak with Guardian columnist George Monbiot. He's launched ArrestBlair.org, a website encouraging citizens' arrests of Tony Blair for crimes against peace in Iraq. We'll also be joined by the director and writer of the Oscar-nominated film In the Loop that satirizes the events leading up to the Iraq invasion. Then President Obama goes nuclear.
We are announcing roughly $8 billion in loan guarantees to break ground on the first new nuclear plant in our country in 3 decades.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The civilian death toll from the U.S.-led assault on the Afghan town of Marja has reached at least 19. Earlier today, NATO confirmed the killings of another 3 civilians since Sunday's rocket attack that killed 12 people in the same home. 10 of the victims were from the same family. The U.S. military initially claimed the rockets missed their target, but now says the home was intentionally attacked because Taliban fighters were inside. The bodies of the victims were handed over for burial Tuesday. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, at least 3 people have been killed in a suspected U.S. drone attack. The strike reportedly destroyed a home in a village in North Waziristan. The Pakistani government has also confirmed reports that Taliban's top military commander has been captured by Pakistani and U.S. forces. Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar is in Pakistani custody, but is also being interrogated by U.S. officials. He's considered to be the most significant Taliban figure detained in the over 8-year Afghan war. President Obama has unveiled a plan to help build the nation's first nuclear reactors in nearly 3 decades. On Tuesday, Obama said the government will put up $8.3 billion to help the Atlanta-based Southern Company build 2 more nuclear reactors in Burke County, Georgia. The loan guarantees will cover up to 80% of the company's costs.
To meet our growing energy needs and prevent the worst consequences of climate change, we'll need to increase our supply of nuclear power. It's that simple. This one plant, for example, will cut carbon pollution by 16 million tons each year when compared to a similar coal plant. That's like taking 3.5 million cars off the road.
The Energy Policy Act of 2005 authorized up to $18.5 billion in loan guarantees for new nuclear plants and other energy projects. President Obama wants to triple the loan guarantees to $54 billion. We'll have more on the story later in the broadcast. In Haiti, a new study says the damage from last month's earthquake is worse than after the 2004 Asian tsunami. The Inter-American Development Bank says the damage could cost up to $13.2 billion compared to initial estimates of around $5 billion. Study co-author Andrew Powell said the earthquake could be the most destructive natural disaster in modern history.
In relation to Haiti's size, its population, or its economic income, it's really a terrible tragedy, one of the worst events that the world has seen for a country proportionate to the country's size. And so it's really a devastating impact that the earthquake has had. We may well be talking of anything up to $13 or $14 billion of damages, and of course reconstruction needs is somewhat different to damages.
Tensions between the U.S. and Iran are intensifying in the latest war of words over Iran's nuclear program. On Tuesday, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told an audience in Saudi Arabia the Iranian government is the world's largest supporter of terrorism.
Iran has threatened other countries, including the kingdom. Iran has funded terrorists that have launched attacks within other countries, including the Kingdom. Iran is the largest supporter of terrorism in the world today.
Clinton was speaking before a women's college in the town of Jeddah. When asked by a student why the U.S. has not insisted Israel abandon its nuclear weapons, Clinton did not respond. Meanwhile, in Tehran, Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad said Iran remains open to a nuclear fuel swap. Under the long-discussed plan, Iran would send enriched uranium abroad in return for nuclear fuel to power a reactor for medical use. Iran appeared to have rejected the proposal last year. But on Tuesday, Ahmadinejad said, quote, "We are still ready for an exchange, even with America." Ahmadinejad also warned against the threat of new international sanctions on his government, saying, quote, "Our response will not be like before." Meanwhile, in Washington, White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs said the Obama administration continues to leave the option of military action against Iran on the table.
And on Iran, you said there will be consequences. Do you rule out military consequences?
I wouldn't rule out anything. Our focus has been on the process of engagement. The Iranians have, at virtually every turn, either ignored or disregarded that engagement, demonstrating to the world that its nuclear program is not of the means and type that they have tried to convince others that it's for. That as a result of that, not living up to their responsibilities, that consequences will follow.
The Obama administration's reappointing a U.S. ambassador to Syria after a 5-year absence. On Tuesday, the White House said it had tapped veteran diplomat Robert Ford for the Damascus post. The Bush administration withdrew its ambassador following the 2005 killing of the former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri. Ford's nomination will now face Senate approval. A U.S. district judge has dismissed a case against former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and U.S. military officials over the deaths of 2 Guantanamo prisoners. The military has claimed the prisoners, Yasser al-Zahrani and Salah al-Salami, and another prisoner committed suicide at Guantanamo in 2006. But a recent article in Harper's Magazine said the prisoners may have been suffocated and tortured at a secret Guantanamo facility known as Camp No. The prisoners' families have been seeking damages under the Alien Tort Claims Act, but on Tuesday, District Judge Ellen Huvel said their case is barred by the Military Commissions Act of 2006. The Committee to Protect Journalists says 2009 was the deadliest year for journalists on record. On Tuesday, the group said 71 journalists were killed across the globe last year. 51 of the deaths were murders. 29 deaths came from the massacre of Filipino journalists last November, the deadliest ever incident for journalists to date. The Justice Department has announced it won't bring civil rights charges against any of the police officers who killed the unarmed New York resident Sean Bell in 2006. Bell was African-American. He died in a hail of 50 police bullets on the morning of what would have been his wedding day. He was 23 years old. The civil rights investigation began after 3 of the officers were acquitted in a 2008 trial. Meanwhile, in Louisiana, the Southern Poverty Law Center has filed a wrongful death lawsuit on behalf of the family of a 73-year-old African-American man killed by police in the town of Homer 1 year ago. Bernard Monroe was shot 7 times in his front yard by a white police officer who claimed Monroe was carrying a gun. Several witnesses say Monroe only had a water bottle and accused the officers of placing a gun next to his body. Monroe had been left mute after suffering from throat cancer. Earlier this month, the jury acquitted the officers of Monroe's murder.